Hello everyone, Mekkah here, and this is a video about Maddening Mode, because as you can tell by this yellow glow on the throne that Felix is sleeping on, I finally managed to beat it last night. Fire Emblem, 3 houses on Crimson Flower, Maddening Mode. The start screen is really annoying, man. It's really annoying. But yeah, I finally managed to win. A lot of fun on stream last night. If you never caught me streaming, every Saturday, 9 PM Central European Time, 3 PM Eastern, I think, usually. And sometimes I stream at like other random times as well. If you want to see when I go live, follow me on Twitter, or keep a close eye on your subscription box. Ring the bell if you haven't already. Join my Discord. That will tell you when I go live. Because sometimes I stream at like random other times. My regular attendees can attest to that. But yeah, this video I'm going to talk about Maddening Mode in general, and then I'm going to show off my team that I used to beat the game with, and hopefully that will keep you entertained. So first of all, Maddening Mode in general, I made a thoughts video on it when it was just released, when I beat like the first 8 or so chapters, and my thoughts on it in general were basically, it's nice that they added a harder difficulty, but it's a little poorly playtested. The first maps take forever to beat because you have to take them very slowly. You have to be very meticulous about where you position your units, so it takes a long time to figure out the right moves, and then if you die you have to start all over again early on because you're like, either you have no Divine Pulse or limited amount, and a lot of people get doubled at one rounded, so it generally ends up being a really bulky unit like Boleth or your main lord. Usually they end up taking a hit, and then everyone else just pelts the enemy with like ranged attacks and bows and magic and stuff until they die, and you just repeat that a lot. And that part, not great. It was nice that it was more difficult, and like I liked that how gambits mattered a lot more. I liked how battalions mattered a lot more in general. I liked combat arts a lot more now, so that was good. That was the good part. But after the first 8 or so maps, honestly, the game, you can tell they really didn't playtest it very well. They didn't playtest it at all, probably, because the enemy stats there are absolutely out of control. The ambush spawns are really unfair. I know they're only there because they know you can undo your problem things, your deaths with Divine Pulse, but I don't think a Fire Emblem game should be designed around Divine Pulse. And there were a couple times in the final map, and even like the maps before that, where I would just be in a good position, and then enemies would just spawn out of nowhere and kill my units, and there was no way I could know what was about to happen unless I looked it up beforehand. And I think that kind of thing, it can be done interestingly, where you get screwed over if you don't know in advance what's going to happen. But I think this is only forgivable if it's like at the very start of the map and you suddenly get like a twist like 2 turns in or something. That's fine, because then it restarts very quick. But if the game just keeps on repeating that gimmick over and over throughout like a whole map, and the only reason you live at all is Divine Pulse, then I think that's fairly poor design. It's not real difficulty, that's kind of cheap. That's what Awakening did, basically. That's what Awakening did wrong. You can make ambush spawns that sort of work. FE6 does it kind of well sometimes, where it's like, hey, there's going to be cavaliers coming from the south, and then you know, okay, there's going to be cavaliers coming from the southern part of the map, but you can kind of predict what's going to happen. You don't know exactly where, but that helps, because if like the opposite is bad too, where if reinforcements spawn before your turn instead of before their turn, then they just spawn and you're like, okay, there's enemies there. That's like, it's almost the same as if an enemy just was already there to begin with. There's no surprise in there, so you need to find some kind of compromise. That's how you pronounce it, right? I've been pronouncing it wrong a lot. I'll just say compromise. Compromise, there we go. That's the word I'm looking for, compromise. But yeah, I think this game did not find that compromise at all, which kind of sucks. I did like that, like, you have more incentive to build your units properly. You have more incentive to position them a little more tightly and make use of like personal skills and stuff. But that mostly mattered for the early game, and in the late game, it was more about finding cheese strats and finding like things that have always worked really well, even on hard mode, but just use them to an extreme. Like things like flyers with alert stance plus and higher void abilities, or things like using really broken gambits like Raging Flames to just destroy a bunch of enemies at once, or battle a bunch at once and then pick them off with your Wyverns. Generally, the same strategies that worked well on hard mode just were even more broken on Maniac mode, or Maddening mode, I should say. I didn't like that very much. I still thought it was enjoyable to play. It was mostly enjoyable because I had like people watching me and they could suffer with me. I think on my own, it's okay to relax with and play for a little bit. I might play like some manning off screen, honestly. Just to say I've been able to complete it multiple times, especially in New Game. The New Game experience definitely helped. I'm a big fan of having a reward for completing it on New Game rather than New Game Plus. That was really nice of them to do, even if it's such a minor thing that no one cares about. Like, we've been jokingly calling it the Golden Shower forever, because if you think about it like that, it's kind of disgusting, but it's also kind of funny. But it's nice that they added a reward, even if it's so minor. It's basically like a ranking system, because that's also a very minor reward. It's just so you're able to say, I beat the game on the hardest difficulty possible, and that's really nice. And new game, I like that it incentivizes you to look out for ways to like optimize your professor level. What I don't like though is that it incentivizes fishing, which I think is a very dumb mechanic. It's a very boring minigame. No one likes fishing. After like 5 times you've seen it already, you don't want to do it ever again, but there's no way to automatically fish. There's no way to get the benefits without it, so you feel like you have to do it at some point just to get the optimal experience. You can do it without fishing, but it's like, it's an extra challenge on top of what you're already doing, and you're nerfing yourself by not doing it. So I feel like fishing just shouldn't have been in the game, period. I think that kind of design is poor. The same kind of goes for auxiliary battles. I think Manx is playing without auxiliary battles, or mostly without it, and I commend him for that. I personally use some auxiliary battles to train because, unlike fishing, well, I mean, fishing is technically limited too, but so is auxiliary battles. You have the idea is you have a limited amount of activity points. You have to make difficult choices on what to do. Whether you want to like do auxiliary battles, or whether you want to do exploring or rest or seminar. In theory, the idea is you have limited time, make your decisions wisely. But you have so much activity points late in the game. You have like 3 battle points for one. So once you like did a paralog, you have like 2 leftover points that you just want to use on something. So might as well go auxiliary battling, right? But I'm just a bigger fan of when the game is designed well around the limited amount of activities you have. And this game just has no real like level or map design at all. So it just shouldn't have auxiliary battles, I think. I think they were unnecessary. I think they were like a compromise to keep people happy that they could like grind up, but not a big fan of grinding. I do like that the maddening cuts down your difficulty a little bit, or cuts down the experience, so that you don't really get a lot out of auxiliary battles, but I've been mostly using them to get like class experience. Mastering classes like the Brigand for Death Blow, or Pegasus for Darting Blow, or Itza, getting him to have, well, those 2, as well as his flying class. What does he get? Oh, he gets Darting Blow, never mind. His personal class too, Mastermind. No, wait, what am I talking about? Counterattack, that's the one I'm looking for. He basically gets distant counter if you train him in his personal class, that kind of thing. So, yeah. I also liked having Itza, I gotta say. It was really fun to have that update hit with Itza in it, and I have it right as I was about to stream chapter 13, so it was a really nice surprise to just have an extra unit for my squad and being able to try him out. It was really fun. I really like Itza as a unit, actually. It's really cool the way he's designed. He's like a pre-promote. He's not really broken or anything, but he gets like, between counterattack and then how easy it is for him to get Darting Blow and Death Blow, he becomes a really good unit when you train him. So there's still some training involved, but he's really powerful and really nice. So I like the Itza. That's a lot. The Crimson Flower really needed an extra unit like that. It's really cool. Speaking of units, let's go check out my my actual squad. I went into this thinking I want to use like the best units I can to make the game easy as possible, but I also want to use mostly Crimson Flower units. So I used mostly Black Eagles with some exceptions. I ditched some. I made use of some as like Adjutant guard Adjutants. I think I ended up using all the Black Eagles that way at least. Let me just double check that. I tried to minimize recruiting from other houses, but I did some, because some units are just too good not to have. So let's go check them out. Of course, there's going to be spoilers in this video about the Crimson Flower routes and the bosses I fight and stuff. Keep that in mind. I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut about other routes in case you haven't beaten the game yet and you care about the story, but just know that Crimson Flower spoilers will most definitely happen. So yeah, there's things on fire. That's all you know right now. Let's see what else you're about to find out. So here is the squad that I deployed in the final chapter, including guard adjutants. This is everyone I recruited. These bottom units I didn't really use much, if at all. I just kind of recruited them for convenience or for paralogs, and that's basically it. So let's start from the top and work our way down. Alright, so here is Raya. This is the only way you can recruit Raya on the Crimson Flower routes, is just naming your Boleth Raya, and there you go. And I got punished for doing that though, because this Raya is the worst Boleth I've ever used probably, which is weird because she's a Falconite. You'd think that'd be good. And if you played like a GBA game and you were offered a Falconite with 34 strength and 30 speed and 47 HP and 18 defense and 25 res, you'd be like, wow, I'll take that any day. But in this game where Maddening is like, well, in Maddening this is just not very good, okay? Like, frequently she would get doubled by enemy Falconites, or killed by a boa if I didn't dismount her, or, you know, killed by a brave weapon or something like that. She was very fragile. She was the cause for a lot of restarts. And I think one of the reasons she's so fragile is because she didn't have Alert Stance Plus. She just has regular Alert Stance. The biggest problem Boleth has, I think, in any mode, but especially Maddening mode, is making it's hard to raise her weapon ranks. You cannot tutor her, so you have to go through like the faculty training, and then after post time skip it's called like advanced drills. And the problem, especially with flying here, is the only way I had to teach her flying in the monastery is Manuela, and I only had that because I recruited her. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had anyone, basically. Because you don't have Seteth anymore. And students can only do advanced drills on Beleth if, and only if, they have higher weapon ranks than she does, and they have a talent in what they have. So for example, my Edelgard has a higher flying rank than Beleth, but flying is not one of Edelgard's talents, so she couldn't teach it. I think Petra might have been able to do it, actually, come to think of it, because she has a talent for it. So I guess I could have done that a little more often. But still, still. Beleth didn't get as far as I would have hoped her, basically. That's partially my fault. I'm not saying this run was done optimally at all. It was my first Maddening playthrough, and also my first Crimson Flower playthrough in anything above normal mode, because I did Crimson Flower speedruns on normal mode, but I've never played it on hard mode or above. I only watched Mangs plays it. So that's why I wasn't really invested in the story, I just played it on Maddening, period. But yeah, Beleth was still very helpful though, don't get me wrong. Like, being a flyer and having Canto, the 3 houses Canto especially, makes her still very good to do like chip damage. She got some really clutch criticals with the Sublime Creator Sword, helped me out of a lot of tight spots. She actually was very instrumental in both Raya battles. Like, both of the fights against Raya post-time skip she was very helpful for. But she wasn't very good at combat, not at all. The stats were just too low, basically. What was good though is her supportive abilities. You can see she has very high charm, so landing gambits with her was a piece of cake. I think it's actually the highest charm on my team. Part of the reasons for this is because I just did a lot of tea partying with a lot of people, sometimes for a joke and sometimes just seriously because I wanted to get charm on my units. You can get like +2 charm per month if you do tea parties apparently, so that's really nice. But also she just builds support with everyone. She can support everyone in the game, I think, and get an A support with them really quickly because she does a lot of activities that build supports. Like, tutoring gives her support points, tea parties give support points, just talking in a monastery gives a little bit of support points if you pick the right options sometimes, dialogue options, that kind of stuff. Basically a lot of opportunities to get easy support points, and because of that she can really be helpful for like linked attacks and gambit boosts, and that increased my hit rates a lot of the times with both of those things. So just normal attacks and gambits, not easier to land when Raya's around, wielding like a ranged weapon to make sure she could join in on the attack if needed. And that was really nice, that was really good to have, but our own combat, not as great. Definitely the worst Beleth I've ever used. Still one of the best units in the game though, don't get me wrong, but not on this playthrough. Here we have Edelgard, who was definitely one of the best units on this playthrough. I think Edelgard is probably the best unit in the game, period, overall. Definitely the best unit that I used on this run. And that's really all mostly because of Amir and Raging Storm combat art, which, in case you don't know, Raging Storm uses up 4 uses of the Amir, but if you land a hit, and it's a really strong hit, and if you land it, you can move again, period. Edelgard can just attack again if you want to, so it's like a Guild Force axe. It's super good. It's the reason I gave her the accuracy ring in this final chapter, just so I could land Amir hits reliably. Because, god, it's so strong. Even before that, though, Edelgard was very helpful. She was one of the few units early on who could take a couple hits, or sometimes even survive 1 hit where everyone else would just survive none. So she was very helpful for that. She also went through the Lord class for a little bit, which was a little surprising move, but I liked using swords with her early on to prevent her from getting doubled. And then later I'd switch to the Wyvern classes and use like axes and get death blow through Brigand and stuff. But before that, I actually went through Lord to make use of Charm, which helps. I think it makes adjacent units take less damage, like 2 or 3 points or something, which is a very big deal early on when 1 or 2 points of damage can make a big difference. A big difference, right. So that was good. Alert Sense Plus was also very helpful, but most of the time I would just attack with her on player phase, kill something with like the Brave Axe or the Silver Axe if I could. I tried to keep Amir safe until like very late in the game, and I realized I have way more material than I need. I could just repair whatever I want. I killed all 3 robots in the chapter where you get the Argathium, I think it's what it's called, the material that repairs the Amir. So in the end I ended up having overkill, but I thought I'd need some for like the Turtle chapter, but turns out you can't use her in the Turtle chapter, so that sucks. By Turtle chapter I mean the Linhart Leone paralogue with the Turtle boss at the end. But yeah, Edelgard was just a monster overall, really strong. If she had one flaw, it would be her low speed, because she would be using like very heavy weapons for me. But that could easily be fixed if I wanted to, through like using swords and just putting sword prowess on her instead of axe prowess, or maybe replacing Authority level 4 or one of the others. But yeah, Wyvern Lord, Edelgard, just fantastic overall. You can see a lot of my squads are gonna be Wyverns, and that's not just because I'm Mekkah, it's because Wyvern Lord is just generally a really good class, and it makes pretty much everyone good at everything. There are reasons not to use Wyvern Lord on everyone, but I would still recommend anyone who wants to beat Maddening Mode to use... If someone seems like they're a good Wyvern Lord, they probably are. And Edelgard is no exception. In fact, she's probably the best Wyvern Lord in the game too. She's talented at Naxes and reasonably good at everything else she needs to be. And she can go through Pegasus Knight early on if you want to. So she can get Darting Blow, which would actually have been a pretty huge help sometimes. If there's one thing I regret about this run, it's not getting Darting Blow or Death Blow on more people than I did. And honestly, I got it on a lot of people. Like, if you check out Petra, for example, I guess I'll show her next. She has both Death Blow and Darting Blow, because she went through Brigand and Pegasus Knight to get those. Petra, also a really good Wyvern Lord. Like, the thing about Petra is she's really fast, and Maddening Mode enemies, the speed you need to hit to double some enemies is insane. Like, there were some late game Swordmasters that she couldn't double, and she has Darting Blow as well as 39 speed. I don't think anything can really top that, honestly. She's definitely the fastest unit in the game, which helped a lot early on, actually. Early on I had her mostly use swords to not get weighed down, so that's why her weapon ranks are so all over the place. I use bows a lot, because you want to avoid counters. But I also use swords a lot to make sure I didn't weigh myself down. But I also trained her in axes and flying, and even had to train her on lances to get to Wyvern Lord, so her training is all over the place. I need authority too, but she does it well, because she has talent in so many of these things, and it really works out for her. As a unit, she's really just a Wyvern Lord and a really good one. Late game, I mostly end up spamming the Killer Axe. I tried to make use of Hunter's Boon when I could, but usually she'd be one of the first to attack rather than someone who finishes off. So Hunter's Boon didn't really do very much for her. But Killer Axe is definitely really nice on her. Don't think she would do well with the Brave Axe. Her strength is really the fact that she doubles with like lighter weapons. But she could use swords too if you wanted to. I just had no room on her skill set, but I could take off Strength plus 2, for example, to make room for that. Alert Stance 2 is also very nice. Alert Stance Plus, really nice to just, you know, fly her over like a bunch of forest and land in one, dismount, wait, get Alert Stance Plus, and suddenly she'd have like 100 avoid. She wouldn't get hit. There would actually still be stances to get hit, because Maddening Mode is just that insane, but generally dodge tanking is a very good way to tackle Maddening Mode, and Petra was very helpful in it. So very fast early on, as like a Myrmidon kind of type unit, but then I reclassed her to like Wyvern and never looked back really. Next we're going to take a look at Linhart before we forget him. He's just a healer. He's really just a staff bot for me, honestly. Like, if you look at that speed, he has 20 speed, and like, even his magic isn't very good at 25. Really, he was just all about that physics staff, that physics spell. Just healing people from a distance, super nice. Early on, just having a healer period is, of course, super important, because you take so much damage in Maddening Mode. Actually, I have to conserve it quite a bit sometimes, because the amount of heal uses you have is limited. And you take so much damage. Sometimes you just want to use Vulneraries instead. So I actually have to juggle a little bit on when to use Vulneraries and when not to. But overall, yeah, just a good staff bot. Never got into S plus Faith, but S was okay, I guess. Trained him in Reason quite a bit. Boganon damage came in handy a couple times, but mostly I've been using Cutting Gale when I wanted him to attack. Nice thing about Linhart is you can use the Caduceus staff, but you can also use the Thyrsus if you want him to. So if you want him to have full range for a bit, just train with the Thyrsus, and you can use it. He doesn't take damage because he does have the crest, but he doesn't get the Pavice effect. But your healers, your magic users generally just cannot take hits in Maddening Mode anyway. They just get one-rounded by everything ever. So there's no reason to expose him or Mercedes or Dorothea or anyone you're using to heal, really. So might as well just take advantage of a full-range staff when you can. But it does have Fiendish Blow and Magic plus 2, so he can pack a punch if he needs to. He's actually really helpful for hitting something like, if a Swordmaster's on a forest, you're not hitting it with your normal melee weapon. So having a ton of magic users around is really nice to chip him down. And that's why Boganon in particular was very helpful, because it's just so strong. But Cutting Gale is good too, because it's very accurate. But mostly this guy has just been using physics and heals whenever he could. Warp, also a very nice tool to have. Didn't use it as much as I could have sometimes, but I definitely use it to warp skip a couple of maps. And just having that is nice. Restore has its occasional use, but really it's all about physic, heal, and warp. Those were the spells I used the most by far with Linhart, and I'm very glad I did. Bishop is a great class for him. Having double magic, white magic uses, and then plus 10 magic heal is just nice. Magic heal as opposed to, you know, physical heal, you know? Petra, I've already been over. Mercedes is much like Linhart, basically the same deal. Different personal skill, but honestly they're both pretty trash. In hindsight, we used to think that like Lift to Serve was the best skill for a healer. Honestly, it doesn't really matter very much what your personal skill is as a healer, because you're never going to use it. And just like Linhart, Mercedes just gets one-rounded by basically everything. She can survive like a magical attack sometimes because her res is pretty high, but generally healing yourself doesn't really do very much. It's like, it's almost the same as having a Vulnerary, basically. It doesn't really do very much for her. She just dies in one round, period. But that's why I gave her Miracle as like a kind of a joke. You can see she has the Thyrsus. I could have given it to anyone else. I traded around a lot just to make sure a lot of my units have full range when I need to. Just like Linhart, sometimes she would do like magical chip, but most of the time I just use her for physicking. And definitely worth recruiting from the blue lines for this. I gave her Stride because Stride as a gambit is just very good and you gotta have it on someone. But the Battalion Zero's Holy Monks is absolute garbage. It only has 30 HP, so if you put it on a frontliner, it's probably get depleted at some point. And it also doesn't give very good stat bonuses. So I gave it to her with the idea she's gonna stay behind early on anyway, so it's fine if she falls behind a little bit due to striding all the other people. But she can kind of physic people to, you know, still be useful, even though she's fallen behind. And of course, you're mostly turtling through Maddening anyway, so sometimes it doesn't even matter that she falls behind, because you're gonna bundle up all your units in like one giant death ball anyway. And then she also never gets attacked because you keep her safe in the back lines, which means Stride will never deplete. You will always have roughly 30 HP on it, so you will always have the second use of Stride available later. That's the idea. If you put it on a frontliner like Sylvain or Fernand, it'd be gone very quickly. Also the fact that like it had to be on a foot unit, so it couldn't be on my flyers anyway. But yeah, another good healer. That's all I have to say on Mercedes from here, really. Physic was just very nice to have, and so was Fortify, actually. Fortify, also very nice to have when I needed it, but mostly it was Physic and Heal. Then we have Felix, and I recruited him from the blue lines. Felix has, I think, some of the best stats out of any of the students, and he's the best crest, and he just has really good talents too, so I had to use him. I used him the first save. I had a Maddening Mode before I reset to stream it, and boy, he's so fucking good. I used Felix on every single run I've done in this game so far, every casual playthrough, and Felix has been a War Master on my Blue Lions playthrough, and then before that, on Golden Deer, he was a Wyvern Lord, of course, because everyone's got to go through the Wyvern Lord phase when you're being used by Mekkah. So I wanted to do something different. I wanted to go with Bow Knight at first, and have the... I liked Bow Knight Leone, I liked Bow Knight Shamir on my first run, so I was like, you know what, he has a talent for bows, why not try to make use of Bow Knight Felix? Turns out Crimson Flower is very short, and I didn't really want to train him all the way to... I think it needs at least B+ writing to have a chance at the exam. So I was like, you know what, Sniper is a pretty good class too. You get Hunter's Volley, you can double everything, and that way his speed doesn't matter. Because even though Felix is a very fast unit in general, he still doesn't double reliably on Maddening. So Hunter's Volley helped him double a lot. Of course, it doesn't help that he has the Aegis Shield, which weighs him down quite a lot. You can unequip it and, you know, get the speed boost again, but that will make him quite fragile. Felix was one of the people who usually carried around a guard adjutant once I had them. That kept him safe a lot of the time. Because you get doubled so often and you get nearly killed so often that the guard adjutant has saved his life many times over in the final chapter alone. It was crazy. And then his skill set was also really nice, because hit plus 20 is just a really good archer skill. Accuracy is always a problem in Maddening, and hit plus 20 helps so much with that. And close counter, honestly not very useful most of the time, because you're mostly luring people with other people than Felix, but sometimes it's nice. Yeah, Felix is just really nice. Hunter's Volley bot for most of it. Curved Shot was also very useful, of course. Sometimes heavy draw, sometimes... I don't know, I think he got Monster Blast. But yeah, Felix was very useful in general. No regrets about recruiting this guy at all. But of course, why would you ever regret recruiting this guy? He's just so good. Dorothea was my Dancer and Meteor support bot, which I think is the way most people like to use her. I'm not the biggest fan of Dancer Dorothea anymore. There were times where I wish I had a different Dancer than Dorothea as like a Gremory instead. Because, well, raining down meteors is more fun when you can do it twice. And like, I could have killed the Dew very easily with Meteor doubling. Like Mags did on his Let's Play, which would have been very nice. But, I mean, I needed a Dancer, and she seemed like a reasonably good fit for it. I could see like other people being a Dancer. The problem is, like, if you look at my team, there's no one I would really want to turn into a Dancer instead. So, I don't know. Like, most of the battles actually got to deploy only like 10 or 11 people, so that makes it even tighter. So I don't know who I would turn into a Dancer instead. But you still want a Dancer, because the option of dancing someone and like taking an action twice is just so good. Like, killing 2 people with Edelgard's Brave Axe, fantastic. Just really good. So you want to have dance on someone, especially special dance at some point. When I got that, that really helped their stats out a lot too. Because they just get like a bonus for, I think it's like speed, dexterity, luck or something. It just makes them a lot more durable and hittable. Or unhittable, I should say. But yeah, Dorothea, early on I just mostly used like heal and physic with her. Until she was ready to become a Dancer. I did train her magic, her reason magic as well to get Meteor, of course. But yeah, she was pretty good to have. Thoron was very nice early on. Very strong chip damage from 3 range. But of course she was very fragile, so I had to protect her, just like the other magic users. But very nice to have. Very nice unit. Fernand von Eyre. Of course, on the star in this unit, because everyone loves Fernand von Eyre. I mostly focused on lances to get swift strikes in the end, but early on I trained his axes a lot, and I think I should have focused on lances a bit more, because swift strikes is really a big difference maker in Maddening Mode, where your speed is just not enough to double no matter how good you think it is. So just like Sylvain, I should have been focusing on his lance a bit more. I did end up getting it in time though, to use it quite a lot in like part 2. So I didn't really miss out, but I never really used this A rank axis very much after part 1. I think I just initially just was like, I need to train his axe rank a lot because he's a Wyvern, and he's going to be a Wyvern, and I need to be Brigand, I need to be Deathblow. But I think I should have focused, like once I got like B+ axes, I think I should have focused on lance, because I ended up not even equipping, well, I have axe prowess right now, but I never really use axes very much, because once you get swift strikes, all you want to use is lances. I mostly use the killer lance. I think I could have given him like a silver lance plus for some more reliable big damage output. I had to hope for a crit quite a lot when I think silver lance would have given him the might he needed. But other than that, Fernand is just great. His personal skill, confidence, gives him plus 10 avoid, I think. Plus 15 avoid when he's at full HP. So that's really nice. I used him to like do the same thing I did with Petra, to just move him to a forest, dismount him, wait, and then just let the enemies miss a lot on him. He's very good for that, especially when he's at full HP. So Fernand is, I would recommend him to anyone really. Swift Strikes again just makes the unit go from pretty good to absolutely fantastic. It's like Hunter's Folly and Swift Strikes are just the best combat arts in the game, especially in part 2. Like early on, I could say there's an argument for like Curved Shot and Smash and Tempest Lance. Those are all really good. Rast Strike too. But late in the game, a skill like Swift Strikes just lets you one-round KO in a mode where one-round killing is just so difficult sometimes. So yeah, Fernand, absolutely fantastic. Sylvain, I recruited him because, well, for one, people were kind of mad that I didn't use him on my Blue Lions run. It's like one of the few Blue Lions I banished, so I was like, you know what? He seems pretty good. You can join him. You can make him join whenever you want when you're female Beleth. So I just make him. I waited a little bit. I made him join in chapter 4, I think, which is the height of when you want to get him, because he gets some auto level, so you don't have to waste XP on him. But he's still early enough to where you can give him like train his skills and his weapon ranks and stuff, which is really nice. As you can see, I managed to get him Death Blow, which was very crucial, getting him some extra damage output in the end. Because sometimes he just, even with Swift Strikes, he wouldn't kill, and that kind of sucked. So he'd be lacking. The biggest problem with Sylvain was that he was very slow. You can see his 23 speed, but unlike the magic users, he's always taking counter attacks. He still has to face enemies on enemy phase. He has high movement, so you want to get him out there, but he just takes so much damage. So that's why he had a guard Adjutants with him always. I think I gave him like Aloe or something. I'll go over the guard Adjutants near the end. But that was very helpful to make him survive, because a lot of the time he just straight up get blown out by enemies if it weren't for the guard Adjutants. Philanderer was very good in the early game mostly, to just boost his damage output and his survivability. He was one of the most bulky units I had actually early on. And it was also nice to have, like, I love having 5,000 Wyverns on my team. Don't get me wrong. 5,000 flyers, like I had Raya, Edelgard, Petra, and Fernand. But the problem with those flyers is they cannot use really good battalions. They can use some, but for example this one, the Supreme Armored Company, that one that Edelgard comes with, it has such a good gambit. It has Raging Flames, which hits, it doesn't show on here, but it hits like a whole horizontal line of like 2x8 or something, or 2x5 or 2x6. It's really, really strong. And it let me like kill so many barriers from monsters. It's super good. So I'm glad to have a unit to put this on. And his charm is actually reasonably high to do it. Not the greatest charm ever, but not the worst either. So it was nice to have the extra hit rate with it, and just use it on people and get rid of like a bunch of monster gauges at once. That's super nice. But overall, just Swift Strikes the unit. Lance of Ruin really good too, but I mean, you can get that by just recruiting him and just getting it from the conversation, or just getting it from the paralog. So I don't really count it in his favor per se. I never really used the combat art very much. Ruined Sky, I don't think it's very good. The hit rate is not very great. But it was nice to have the Lance, and it was nice to have on him, I guess. But mostly just Swift Strikes the unit. Really good. Then we have Itza, aka I Live. Definitely one of my favorite units to use. I already talked about him quite a bit. It takes some work to get counterattack, death blow, and darting blow on him, but once you have that, he's an enemy phase machine, as well as a player phase machine. You can just delete people with the Brave Lance, or the Scythe of Sariel, or the Spear of Azal, but he also kills people in enemy phase. It's absolutely fantastic. Like, he joins at like level 27, which is not too high, but his stats at base were already pretty good. His personal is nice, it gives him extra hit. I think it's like plus 20? Yeah, it's basically hit plus 20, it's just very nice. And, well, I mean, when he initiates, but he's also about, like, the funny thing is he has, like, a great combination of both player phase and enemy phase skills that he can use. Death Blow, by the way, you have to go back through Brigand for a little bit, but at base he can certify for it, so it's not too hard. It's like one auxiliary battle. And another nice thing about Itza is he has a Bane authority at base, so even though he has a Bane, he can really equip almost any battalion you want him to. So if you want, like, the Raging Flames thing, the Supreme Armored Company or something on him, you can do that. If you want one of those Dancer battalions, if you have that through like New Game Plus or something, you can do that. You can really use anything you want. I gave him the Gloucester Knights and Assault Troop, which is just a very durable battalion with a pretty good gambit on it. But you can really give him anything you want, and that's what's absolutely fantastic. You can counter bolting enemies. You can counter like 3 range mages, whatever you want. And unlike something like it's not like you have to equip like a spear or something or a javelin to counter. You just counters with his normal weapons, which is very strong. Counterattack is just great. And movement +1 is not hard to get either. So a pre-promote that's pretty easy to raise in the areas where he does need to be raised. But generally his base weapon ranks are just fantastic overall. And he comes with the Mastermind skill in his convoy too. So you can train him in anything you want. But it's easiest to just focus on like either lances or swords most of the time. Gives you an extra skill slot because you don't have to use both sword and lance prowess. But yeah, I live definitely the biggest meme of the unit of the run because he just say that whenever he gets healed or gambited or whatever. But just super fun to use. Really, really fun to use. And very glad that he joined me just as the update dropped, basically. Just as the run got to his point. Yeah, I love Itza. He's very fun to use. That is, I think, that's Hubert, I guess, is left. Hubert was left out of my team a couple times because of Paralogs having very restrictive unit allowances. But I did really enjoy using Hubert. It's the only route you get him on. And he's a great chip damage bot. Meyer B was very helpful early on in weakening monsters and like getting their defense down. But in general, he just deals a lot of chip damage. Later on, he became less crucial because as the other people were like good healers as well, Hubert can't really heal very well. I gave him like a bit of faith experience just so he could heal normally, but he can't like learn physic or anything. That kind of sucked. But it was useful sometimes. I never used his lance talent. I actually trained him in lances quite a bit, but I could never really get him to where I wanted him to be. At one point, I wanted to make him a Dark Knight, but it's just so hard to get the certification for both lances and riding. It's just a lot of work. So I didn't end up going through with it. Mostly I just been spamming Miasma, sometimes Meyer, sometimes Dark Spikes. But in general, it's just chip or do nothing at all for a turn. That's basically him in a nutshell. I did go through Dark Mage, got Poison Strike. Also went through Warlock to get Bowbreaker, which I never made use of, so never doing that again for sure. Not very good. Dark Magic Reigns came way too late to be really useful. I think I forgot to put it on him for like 2 battles too. That didn't help. So I would say Hubert is mostly useful in part 1. And after that, a lot less so. But there's definitely some parts where he can be useful. And he can make good use of the Theursis, even though he takes damage from using it because he doesn't have a crest. He's a noble, but he doesn't have a crest. But he's still pretty good. That leaves Lysithea. She's not actually part of my team. I just deployed her for the final chapter for the memes. She's just a level 25 mate that I recruited a little bit before time skip, I think. And she got some auto levels and she got like some adjutant levels. But I never really used her, and then I killed the final boss with her. I used Luna to get like the last bit of HP. That was it. That's all I used her for. I don't even know why I recruited her, to be honest. It wasn't very good. But hey, she could use Impregnable Wall in the final. That helped a little bit. So yeah, basically the best unit in the game, easily. Then we have some guard adjutants. These are super, super good to have. It doesn't really matter who you use it for. Aloise was nice because he just joins capable of becoming one. Just need to reclass the brawler and he's there. Caspar was just I just trained him through like auto leveling, auto tutoring, or just put his goal to basically Axis and brawling, and he was able to become a brawler. I think I might have even just focused on brawling, and yay. And Bernadetta took a lot more work, of course, but she has like no talents in anything that she needs. In fact, she has a Bane in both heavy armor and Axis, but I somehow managed to get it to Armor Knight anyway. I don't know how, I just managed to do it, I guess. But just having guard adjutants in Maddening is such a big difference. It's so nice because you can double all the time, and they prevent so much damage. Like, I could explain how they work exactly, but Chaz did a much better job of doing that in his video. So just check that one out if you want. It's called like Chaz. I don't know. Just find his channel and you'll find it on there. It's like 1 million views, and it should, because it's super helpful. This is by far the best adjutant type. You should use it every single time. These other people I didn't really use at all. Leonie was there in the Turtle Paralogue. She's forced, but other than that, I never deployed her. She's just like, I walked into like Gerald's room to talk to him for a quest, And she was there, I talked to her, I was like, hey, I can recruit her, yay. And that was it. That's all I could do. Manuela could warp, but I think she learned it, but I never really used it. No, she didn't even learn it. Never mind, she sucks. But she could train my flying rank, so that was nice. Ingrid's kind of the same thing with Leonie. I just randomly recruited her at one point. I should have recruited her earlier, or delayed her paralog, because I could have gotten the Lewin Lance a lot at all, but I didn't end up getting it. I just did a paralog and then recruited her later, which is dumb of me, but whatever, I was stubborn about it. Shamir I never really used, except I think I used her in Sotis paralog to like chip some things. She's actually very helpful to have there. But she's definitely one of the best units in the game, don't get me wrong, but I didn't use her. Hanuman I just recruited because I could, same month as Manuela. And Lawrence I recruited pretty much just to get the Thyrsis paralog. I never really used Lawrence. He's been trained as a Cavalier here because, you know, that's what the game does if you don't recruit him early. And as a result, he kind of sucks. So I like Lawrence a lot, but I didn't use him. So that is my whole squad. I think for Maddening Mode, this team is not the best, but it's close to like the best units, I think. There's definitely some optimization to be made. But I had a lot of fun playing overall. I had a lot of fun watching people react to it on stream and stuff. It was a great experience. Itza was absolutely one of my favorite things about this. And yeah, I'm not going to do another Maddening Mode run anytime soon. I have made a poll on my community tab about what you want me to stream next, so keep that in mind. Vote in it if you haven't already. And it's looking like right now it's going to be an FE6 Iron Man run, because I made a poll earlier, people voted Iron Man run, and then just last night I made a poll and I said, what game do you want me to Iron Man? A lot of people are voting FE6 right now, so that's what's in the lead. But other games do have a shot if you all go ahead and vote. So go check it out if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter to see when I go live. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you thought of Maddening Mode 2 now that you've had the chance to beat it in the last like 2 months or something. Anyway, see you guys around. It's been fun. Peace and goodbye.